So I got a great comment on a YouTube video recently in relation to an MCAS video that I did. And I'd really like to thank the viewer for their question, because it's a brilliant question, and it's one which I think is important. And I think many people have the same conundrum, the same questions. So it says, I've been trying to get a diagnosis for the last 5 years. I have all the comorbidities that you mentioned, including but not limited to hypermobility, phonophobia, temperature dysregulation, blood pressure and fainting issues. I get overcome with tiredness, episodes of narcolepsy, post-exertion malaise, CFS, ME, fibromyalgia, cognitive malfunction and blurred vision. Now, this is a brilliant question, because this is actually many of my patients, many of my clients. This is what I do every single day. And you know, for this person, I think we could very respectfully say, look, you're either seriously unlucky with an awful lot of separate, disconnected diseases, or what if there is an underlying root? This is why I dislike this diagnostic idea of a label. What's going on underneath is more important. Why is that there? Why did you get pneumonia? Well, that's okay, fine. But why does someone else get a cold and you don't? Well, that's the state of our immune system, for example. When we understand the body in terms of its nervous system, its energy flow, the immune system, hormone system and endocrine system, when we see them as related systems, then it's much more complex, and that's the challenge, because we like to simplify things into little boxes, but that's useful to a point. But when we go, all right, maybe you've got pneumonia and fine, there could still be underlying reasons and why your pneumonia is separate, different to someone else's, because you're unique. But if you've got all these separate diagnoses, are they really? I think the answer probably lies in dysautonomia. And trauma being not what happened to you, but what happens inside the body. What trauma is a wound. Trauma creates dysregulation, imbalance. This imbalance in the body, dysregulation, which means that we don't have the normal balance of systems changing and working together in a balanced way. That's what causes these problems. So the fatigue, the phonophobia indicates to me that there's a hypervigilance and a hypersensitivity which will be coming from brain stem, because we've got the acoustic nerve as part of brain stem, one of the cranial nerves, along with the vagus nerve, olfactory, hypoglossal, the swallowing, seeing, hearing, smelling. Basic survival is what takes place in the bottom of the brain, and the brain stem we call it. And it's survival instincts. That's why if we get traumatized, if we feel unsafe and stressed, then what will happen is we drop down. It's why people end up, getting the so-called red mist in a pub fight or something. There's no point trying to have a logical, reasoned conversation with people at this time. And police will try to de-escalate, because they know that actually when that person calms down a little bit, then actually they can have a reasoned conversation with them. And that's because we go into survival instincts, survival physiology, and the top part of the brain and the cognitive higher senses, they start to go offline. So we will become much more acutely aware of sounds. We'll hear a pin drop because we need to, because if there's a rattlesnake over there, or if there's a gun going off over there, or there's a person moving over there because we're in a war situation, those senses become hypervigilant. But it's exhausting to do that. And what it does, if that's stuck on for a long time, as you've seen in other videos like my PNIE, the link between the immune system, hormone system, psychological system, nervous system, when we look at that, then these things, if they're stuck in this state or traumatizing events, throw the system out and we get stuck like a stuck record. Our body's not able to come out of that state. So the immune system works overdrive. The nervous system is on high alert the whole time. This high charge, this sympathetic charge in the nervous system, and that is exhausting. It can affect the hormones because of adrenaline. It's going to change the other endocrine glands, pituitary, thyroid problems, so commonly associated with this as well, because of the connection down from the control. What controls the thyroid? We don't just get underactive thyroid or overactive thyroid for no good reason. Of course, there can be dietary reasons for it and other reasons, but so often it's, for example, the pituitary and the hypothalamus, which control down onto that. So it's when we understand how everything's joined up. So I don't know whether I'm giving you an answer here in terms of a diagnosis. Well, that's probably intentional, and that's because it's more important to understand what is going on, what is working in the body, how the system is working, how is the relationship. You know, it might be sort of like talking about a marriage or a relationship or a team in a workplace. And is it just one person, or is it just really how are they relating to one another? Yeah, and that's the same as it is in our body. But if I was to give a diagnosis, it's probably got some trauma in the system for some reason, and that may be an event that you're aware of. It may actually be something which has been activated or triggered from years ago, or even transgenerational. And that will often lead to dysregulation of this unconscious nervous system, autonomic nervous system, which controls so much of these systems in the body. Dysautonomia is such a big thing that we need to be working with and thinking about. So thank you very much again for that question. I hope that my answer has not been too confusing, because I do appreciate it is a difficult and complex thing, and that's why you need to work with skilled therapists that are able to understand this very complex, amazing human being and how everything joins up. Yeah. So I hope that helps. I hope that this also helps other viewers with similar complex issues going on in their lives. And once again, I just want to say that there is hope, for your healing with these conditions. Yeah. So thanks again for the question.